As a young kid scared in a refugee camp where you don't know what home is and you don't know what home is going to be, the chances of me ever being on a stage like this, to be able to tell my story and to be able to share my reality is almost impossible. I always say hope is something powerful, but over time it diminishes. But you can be that hope. You can reignite that hope. That's what I do, but there's just one Mary. I want there are millions of Mary in this room to actually start initiatives and to speak up for refugees like I do.
I told you when I first met you how in awe I am of you. We met, I guess about a month ago, maybe it was a little bit ago. And we sat on stage together. We were in Delaware. Senator Chris Coons introduced us. And literally on the spot, I said, please come and join us to close out USGLC's forum. Let me tell you about Mary, and then I want you to talk. Mary grew up as a young child. She fled the war in South Sudan. Let's close the door, because I want everybody to hear this. Colleagues, Billy, can I get your help in closing the door? So Mary fled as a child from South Sudan. Who's been to Kenya, to the Kakuma refugee camp? I have. It is one of the largest and harshest refugee camps in the world, which is where Mary then grew up. But through her resilience, you studied hard. And believe it or not, Mary not only received a scholarship, but accepted it and went to school in Minnesota. And from that, yes, we can clap about that. And graduated with honors last year and is now appointed as a Goodwill Ambassador for UNHCR. What a journey. So Mary, tell us all, not only about this journey from fleeing South Sudan, what it means to you now to be sitting here as the Goodwill Ambassador.
I feel like it's a lot of things to fathom. As a young kid scared in a refugee camp where you don't know what home is and you don't know what home is going to be, the chances of me ever being on a stage like this, on a table, to be able to tell my story and to be able to share my reality is almost impossible. To live in a camp where, you know, the camp walls shield you and you are tucked away in the middle of a semi-arid refugee camp that has a population close to 300,000 refugees. For you to be a story of success is almost impossible. For you to ever come out and have that resiliency being handed to you just because of your misery. Even that word in itself, I don't want to be resilient because I had to go through something challenging and something traumatic. As a child fleeing South Sudan and having to fathom trauma, death, all of this, and to be able to watch your parents go through this aspect of loss, as you watch them lose their home and you do not understand what that means, because as a child, your parents are like your gods.
They're
right?
everything.
And they
They're
guide
everything.
you. And I find myself in this refugee camp with thousands and thousands of children whom we all know. We don't know if someone out there is ever going to see our story, is ever going to ever believe in us, is ever going to invest in us. A refugee issue becomes very political. And people forget that there is a Mary who loves to dance and fashion and wants to be on stages where she belongs. That was my journey. And for me to even find myself in Minnesota, that was impossible. You're coming from 100 degrees to Minnesota cold, right? You can imagine how hard that is, you know? And to want to feel welcome, to want to feel like you have a voice, because as refugees, we don't have government speaking for us. It's just us. Right now, I am in front of you. As you see me, this is the whole rawness of my emotions, of me trying to tell you to hear me, to see me, to make me feel acknowledged. And for you to even understand the refugee story, it means that you have to put aside all your political views and actually see me as a child, as a girl that is trying to thrive in this world with no access to anything.
Mary, what's extraordinary to me is, as I've learned your story, is that you took your journey and you're now giving back. So I have been to the Kakuma refugee camp, and so this part is equally extraordinary, is that you have set up your own nonprofit now. Focus on providing access to higher education, so giving back. So not only are you here to sit here to tell your story, but in addition, you're giving back. And you said something, and I'm going to read your beautiful words. For the children of war, an education can turn their tears of loss into a passion for peace. Tell us about this nonprofit, why education is such a powerful tool that you want to give back.
Giving back is everything to any kind of community, whether you're a refugee or not. And for me, education was a false promise. It was a stolen promise for me. I graduate and there is a dead end. Less than 6% of refugees worldwide have access to tertiary education. In Kenya, that is less than 1%. So how do I win? How do I ever win as a refugee if somebody somewhere is not giving back to me and actually recognizing me? So in 2021, we started a nonprofit. This is after I got accepted to St. Olaf. And I'm like, I want to create access. Less than 5% in Kakuma refugee camp, which is in Kenya, have access to electricity, less than 5%. So can they even ever type? Can they ever go online to apply to the Common App and all these other opportunities that are out there? So for me, giving back means creating access to the millions and millions of displaced refugees around the world. By now, when we started our nonprofit, Elimisha Kakuma, we've been able to place over 30 students to US universities like UC Berkeley. We have students at University of Tulsa, at Amherst University, and this is because these universities actually opened up their spaces, and they were like, they saw the value that this is not just giving a refugee student a chance. These students bring so much wealth to our campuses, right? So thank you to all the universities. Thank you to all the universities that actually pledged to taking our students. There's still thousands and millions of refugees out there that could benefit from universities. So you imagine if each university could take one refugee. Do you know how many thousands of universities are in the United States alone? That could be like pathways that are being opened to so many refugees. So right now with UNHCR, the refugee agency, we are working on 15% by 2030. This we can achieve if we all come together. That to me is giving back. You know, that is welcome. That is inviting us into your story.
So let's keep this thread about what we can do.
Yes.
So I mentioned earlier, actually, to the National Security Advisor to tap into the fact that 114 people on this planet are displaced. You lived this. You know this. You know the trauma of this. What can we do? You mentioned a very specific on education, but as you think about the storyline that you and the other children in the refugee camp, what can we do in terms of taking action to address this horrifying part of our world affairs?
Ooh, I think this is usually one of my best parts. Chimamanda talks about...
Okay, listen everybody.
Chimamanda Adichie talks about the dangers of a single story. Right now in the country, there's a lot of dangers of single stories of refugees. You have so much power to humanizing the refugees that come into your state, into your world. We are mothers, we are soldiers, we are parents that have so much to give, and we are looking for communities that could see us more than numbers, but as people, as parents trying to give back to their kids, you know, as young adults going through puberty, like let us go through that in communities that accept us, that welcome us. So in policymaking, because most of you are in charge of policymaking, can you speak up for us? Because it's one of me. It's thousands of refugees that will never be able to be on stages like this. So speak for us. be able to welcome us to your communities and into your societies. For instance, when I came to Minnesota, my host parents picked me up from the airport. You can imagine going to the supermarket and there's different types of Colgate. I'm like, I just need toothpaste, you know, or like I'm trying to get like coffee and they're like, do you want 1%, 2%, skim milk? I'm like, I don't understand this. And they were able to help me be able to maneuver that. It's small little things. It's kids coming to tutor, like other refugee kids. It's one person being like, I'm going to teach you how to drive. And I was driving like this with the steering wheel, like literally close to my soul. It's so many small things that the citizens, that people can do to make me feel welcomed. And you can imagine what they will be getting from that too. I will be giving them a little bit of my cultural background. As I learn how to yoga and how to stay warm in the winter, I will teach you a 1, 2, 3 thing about South Sudan, and we get to commune, we get to dine together on a table.
So tell us one thing about South Sudan you want us all to know.
Oh, we are beautiful people.
Well, that we know. I said one thing we don't know.
We are good with basketball, we are good with sports, like in the modeling industry. Well, look at this.
Look at how gorgeous she is.
Yes.
All right, I want to close with a little bit of hope, because I told you this story when we met in Delaware. So when I was in the Kakuma refugee camp, which is why, given that I was there, I'm so in awe of you. I talked to a mom. And I talked to a mom through a translator, and I was brought to her home. Now, to all who did not raise their hand, you know when I say home, her home was a hut about half of the size of the stage. She had, I think, 8 children. There was literally nothing in that hut. And that was her home. And I said to her, she was from South Sudan also. They had escaped. And I said to her, if there was no more fighting, would you go home? And the translator said to me after she talked, no. Why? Why? Because here, in this camp, that there was nothing. There was no toys to play with. It was completely barren. All you saw were these kind of makeshift units, because here, my kids can get educated. Here, my kids can get educated. And there was the US flags having given through UNHCR. Tell us, you had the resilience to be sitting on the stage today. What is that vision of hope that you had to get here, that mother had to tell me that? What about the other 299,000 individuals that are in that refugee camp and at refugee camps all over the world?
I always say hope is something powerful, but over time it diminishes. If there's no one actually seeing that little hope, it dims. And for me, I wanted to get outside the camp wall so badly. I wanted to dream. I wanted something outside that environment. And for me, I latched on education. I knew it was a dead end. I knew it was less than 1% that could ever make it out there, but I had to make it, right? And when I got out, I'm like, how can I continue to instill hope in more people? Right now, even with our nonprofit, you can imagine our first cohort is going to their 3rd year of college. The kind of hope it has created within the refugee camp. And this is just one camp. Hope can be instilled, it can be reignited every single time. You might think that you don't have so much to bring to the table or finance or all of that. No, it's you just even starting it. It's you starting conversations around refugee inclusion. It's you starting community events that welcome the newly resettled refugees, because they are going to struggle even in this new country. It's assimilating and having to learn a new language, having to learn stuff. It's really daunting, but you can be that hope. You can reignite that hope. That's what I do, but there's just one Mary. I want there are millions of Mary in this room to actually start initiatives and to speak up for refugees like I do.
There is just one Mary, and thank goodness we got to meet her. Everybody, let's thank Mary Maker. You are amazing. Wow. Isn't she terrific?